We are still discussing Paul Pelosi, husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who was attacked inside his home at 2 a.m. this morning, just after 2 a.m. with a hammer. We've learned that the assailant was looking for Nancy Pelosi, according to reporting from NBC News, sources that they've spoken with. Joining me now by phone is California Congressman Khanna. Thank you very much for being with us, Congressman. What are you thinking right now?
Well, I'm just sickened and outraged by the assault on Paul Pelosi. You know, I've been to the Speaker and Paul Pelosi's home many times. They've opened that home up for decades to community members, for philanthropic events, to activists. And it's just so appalling that we've come to this state in our democracy that Paul Pelosi can't be safe in his own home.
Do you feel safe?
Well, look, I don't think anyone in public life today is completely safe. I would say, though, that there are other colleagues of mine, particularly women of color, who are bigger targets. And we have to really understand that words have consequences in political debate. We have to understand that social media has consequences. My understanding from preliminary reporting is that the suspect had problematic conspiracy theories on social media. There should be a review whether there was any incitement to violence there. But we have to do some soul searching as a country. I mean, what makes us an extraordinary democracy is that we don't settle disputes with violence. That's the essence of who we are, and it's just incredibly sad to see.
Well, I mean, is that still the case after January 6th? Is it still the case that we can say that we don't settle disputes without violence?
Well, less so, obviously. I mean, that was what we saw on January 6th, and apparently the suspect had comments about January 6th on his social media. But my hope is that moments like this could get us to reflect that this violence is outrageous. I mean, yes, there's going to be a review on security. I was frankly surprised that there was not security at the Speaker's residence. I had just assumed there would be. I imagine that there will be an assessment to make sure, at least with leadership or members of Congress who face specific threats, that there needs to be an increase of security. But beyond that, we all need to recognize the consequences of words that we utter on social media or in the public domain, and what we're doing in the atmosphere we're creating in this country. When
you say we all, who are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about anyone who has used language that is threatening violence, inciting violence, that is encouraging people to act violently or stoking anger. I mean, I don't want to, me calling out specific people is just going to perpetuate the cycle. I would like just a truce, a sense. There's a famous scene from The Godfather where all the families meet after one of the son's death, and he says, enough of it. I mean, we almost need a moment in this country on both sides where people just say enough. We don't want to live in this country like this.
I hear you. A lot of the conspiracies surround the 2020 election, and that conspiracy that it was stolen or fraudulent is being spread by a lot of Republicans. There are a number of election deniers who are running for office. How do you deal with that, Congressman?
Well, we deal with it by standing up for the truth, the way the Speaker stood up on January 6th, where she insisted that we all go and vote at the early hours of the morning to affirm democracy. And I believe that the January 6th Commission did an extraordinarily patriotic job in standing up for values. And what I think that we need to do is be careful in our language, and even those who disagreed with the certification of the election, and they're, in my view, totally wrong in election deniers, the hope would be that at least they would not be putting things out there that are going to target individuals and incite violence. The reality of January 6th, and I keep saying this, is that the person who was most at risk was a Republican. It was Vice President Pence. many of the colleagues targeted were Republicans. This really should not be a partisan issue. People who are out there who have mental health issues or who are looking to do these violent acts, they don't really stop to think, is someone a Democrat, is someone a conservative, is someone a Republican? Everyone is at risk who's serving, and it's in everyone's interest, not just the right thing to do, but in everyone's interest, everyone's family's interest, to tamp down the rhetoric.
That's a good reminder. It was Vice President Pence. And when we watched some of the video that came out of the rioters on the floor of the Senate, they were rifling through Ted Cruz's papers, saying that Ted Cruz must be hiding something. So it wasn't just Democrats. It was Republicans, too. It was everybody in office that they felt was cheating them because the president told them so. Former president. Congressman Khanna, thank you very much for calling in today. I know you've got a busy schedule. We appreciate it.